I'm your host, Scott Norton, and welcome to At Large. On this show, I talk to world-class creatives who use business to bring their ideas to life. We'll hear about their creative practices, their most interesting stories, and the lessons that'll inspire you the way that they've inspired me. My guest today is Alexis Gay. While on the rise in her career in tech, Alexis took to the internet to lampoon her own industry as her social alter ego at @YayAlexisGay. With razor-sharp comedic instincts and magnetic screen presence, she pokes fun at the absurdity of a new professional class that's trying to put a dent in the universe while navigating petty personal problems. After 25 million video views, countless industry conference keynotes, and over 100 episodes of her podcast Non-Technical, Alexis has now left her desk job and incessant Slack messages behind. She's now started a new career as an entertainer, trading annual performance reviews for nightly standing ovations. After debuting her one-woman show Unprofessional at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland, she's taking it on an 8-city tour across the United States. We sit down a day before her performance in Los Angeles to talk about her travels in the creator economy and her craft of self-parody. Please enjoy my conversation with a consummate, unprofessional, professional, Alexis Gay. Alexis, great to have you here today.
I'm so happy to be here.
In a lot of ways, you're a niche creator, but you are at the top of your game.
Thank you.
And in so many ways, I think you've defined a genre.
Oh my God, that's very flattering.
And so we're going to talk today about how you got there.
I would love to.
And I would love to start, before what you're doing now, you worked in tech.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to talk about Patreon.
Yes.
Because Patreon, your experience there is applicable, for so many reasons, but you led creator partnerships there. And I'm curious to hear from you, what did you learn from watching these creators? What did you learn from that experience? Tell us about what it was like at Patreon.
Absolutely. So I was there for almost 3 years. And I started as the first outside hire to the creator partnerships team. But I took the job because I was also able to start building out operations for the team. So I was like, ooh, I get to talk to people and I get to build a spreadsheet. This is the perfect job for me. And then over the course of 3 years, I was lucky enough to be able to build and lead that team. And the biggest learning that I had from my time there was that this is a possible career path. It wasn't that I learned, oh, here's every single step. Here's a perfect blueprint to how to have a thriving, financially independent creative career. But I saw so many examples of it being possible. And it's directly related to my eventual decision to leave that job and go into comedy full time. But it wasn't like anyone handed me a book and was like, oh, here's how to do it. But it was just at Patreon, I was constantly exposed to creators building businesses just from their work.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And what was their emotional journey like as creators? Did you have a front row view into that?
I really did. And often I would joke with the creators who I was helping onboard to the platform that I was like a business therapist. Because so often I would have conversations with creators who had built huge, thriving, really engaged audiences online, whether through their podcast or through YouTube or other sources of media. But they would feel really hesitant to, quote, ask for money. Oh, I don't want to ask for money. Which right off the bat, that's such an interesting, why not? But also, it doesn't have to be an ask. So often I would have these conversations, oh, I don't want to ask for money. And I'm like, you're not asking for money. You're just offering another product. This product happens to be premium, and so it costs something. The rest of your stuff can stay free, can stay accessible to everyone. Maybe that's ad-supported content. This is just something else to offer the audience in the way that you might sell tickets to a live show. And so a lot of what I did in that role was helping creators reframe this idea of what it meant to introduce a paid component to their work.
And give us a lay of the land. Like, what does the quote unquote like creator economy look like now? I mean,
I love that term. Do people still talk about the creator economy in the way that they did, do you think?
Well, no, because I think that many people believe it has collapsed and believe that there aren't enough subscription and underwriting dollars to support the dreams that were at one time present. And so I think the term is still used, but I also think that during COVID and during quote unquote like lockdowns, when we couldn't go outside and spend money on restaurants and travel to Thailand, people were spending money on the internet. And so there was a creator bubble.
Yes.
And so what I'm curious about, give us a lay of the land now. What has survived? What are the monuments? Who is winning?
Okay. I kind of have a hot take on the creator economy, to be honest, which is that I don't think it was ever a real thing. I don't think it was ever a true possibility in the way that most companies, specifically tech companies that popped up to, quote, support the infrastructure of the creator economy, I don't think it ever existed to the extent that they wanted it to. Mm-hmm. I think that the TAMs that people were throwing up to get good valuations on their companies were, I don't mean to be offensive and say like, oh, they were ridiculous.
No, you can offend.
I did.
Just wait till I talk about plant-based meat.
I don't seek to offend anyone, but I do want to point out that the number of creators that have the willingness, desire, and ability, and then engaged audience size to support the infrastructure required for a subscription-based business that not only sustains them as a creator, but then gives them enough money to play with to grow their art. It is a small number of people with the desire, interest, ability, and all that. Yeah. And the TAMs that were going, I would hear people go like, oh, well, everybody is going to be a creator. And I'm like, no, not everybody wants to be a creator. And also creators need audiences. There's roles for both. There's creator and there's audience. And it felt like a lot of the addressable market that companies were claiming was there, I just never thought was there.
And what about, aside from the companies, what about on the creators themselves? Did you witness journeys of people, venturing out and then being able to, support their life and make a livelihood on this, and then also some, not working out?
That's a really good question. In part because I think it working out can kind of mean different things. You might want different things from your creative career. Mm-hmm. You might just want to earn enough money to cover it, and then you have a full-time job elsewhere. Mm-hmm. Or if you are leaving to make it your full-time job, what does success mean for you? Does that mean not having any other sources of income other than your online subscription? So it can mean a lot of different things. Yeah.
The number that I read recently was that the average, I don't know if it was average or median, let's say median creator/influencer made $15,000 in 2023 last year, which is an interesting number because it is, definitely material and appreciable, right? That's real money that someone could use, but it's also not enough to sustain, right? It's half of what, GDP per capita would be. And so, that number is in a way telling because it's like the average creator, the median creator is not necessarily fully earning a living on it, right? Sure. But it is also something that might meaningfully be, supporting their expenses and supporting their life.
Okay. Some thoughts to throw out there on this. One, I do think, and it doesn't have to be now, but at a certain point in our conversation, we may want to diverge the definitions of influencer, creator, and then maybe even a third bucket like comedian, writer, etc.
Yes.
Because often, and especially the divide between influencer and these other career paths, the structures are just very different. And in my opinion, your relationship with your audience is very, very different. And what you want from them and what they want from you is different across those three paths.
So Alexis, I'd love your opinion on the definition and the distinction between what is an influencer and what is a creator.
In my opinion, an influencer is selling a lifestyle. And whether that is around a fitness lifestyle, a wellness lifestyle, maybe it's a fashion lifestyle, and there can be education around all these topics, but they're selling a lifestyle and education around like a particular topic, a fashion influencer. Mm-hmm. And then on a creator side, I think that a creator is formally making content that may stretch outside the boundary of like anything with an educational value. They might be just making purely entertainment. You might argue that someone who is like a wellness influencer is also a content creator. Like, I think that's definitely a fair argument, but I don't think every creator, in fact, I know every creator is not an influencer because oftentimes they're offering, here's something to enjoy. not, hey, be like me. Or hey, consume my life. It's consume this art that I made for you.
So interesting. So you have videos that dig on SF, dig on New York. You're in LA today.
Yes.
There's lots of great source material here.
Yes,
Can you parody LA? What's funny about LA?
This is a question I really think about. What is funny about LA? And when I think about what is funny about San Francisco, a lot of it comes from a lack of self-awareness.
Every single park hang in San Francisco.
We're going remote. We're going remote. We're going remote. Oh, we're going fully remote. We're starting with a hybrid model, but I think we'll end up going fully remote. I've been getting really into low alcohol aperitifs. Oh, are those the new Allbirds? She went to Austin. He's in Miami. They're doing van life. I've been trying to close this key hire for months. That guy's naked. That valuation was actually hilarious. They don't even have any users. We matched on Hinge. We moderated a room together on Clubhouse. Oh, he DM'd me about that viral Twitter thread on the future of work. Remember when Subla was closed? That was tragic. I thought the IPO was kind of a bold move, but good for them. I am freezing, by the way.
And I do think there is a component of a lot of what I see in LA that suffers from the same affliction of lack of self-awareness. It's not to say these things are inherently bad. It's just that people do them without being aware that they're doing them, you know? Something I appreciate about LA is how into like wellness it is. Like I like that you can get, you know, your cold plunge and your sauna.
That in and of itself can become the source material for mocking this
Sure.
place.
Well, I mean, when that same person who like will only drink raw milk and has to like stand outside in the sun to get their vitamin D is like then also around the corner like chain smoking. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
So I do find that there's like there can be a little bit of hypocrisy here around the wellness thing, which is like, no, we're all like super zen and wellness.
I will say you don't meet a lot of chain smokers in LA.
That's true. That's true.
But you very, very rarely see people ripping cigs.
That's a good point. I feel like I see more people smoking than I would expect. I would expect zero.
Yes, but smoking is coming back, unfortunately.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Seriously, though, smoking is on the rise.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What?
Because people are leaving vapes. And, and they're rejecting the digital. They're embracing the analog.
I do think that is what it is.
Yeah.
It's harder for me to think about what's funny about LA because I don't think LA cares what I think about them.
No, they don't.
At all.
Yeah.
Nobody here cares about my opinion because I live in New York.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that your audience might not find it funny.
No, I agree with you on that. Yeah. I 100% agree with you on that. But I do think that something that makes making fun of basically myself as a tech employee or myself as a resident of San Francisco is that other people feel seen by it, and then we are all laughing at the joke together, and I'm mostly making fun of myself in those videos. Your genre is self-parody. It really is, and that's important to me.
Right.
And so making fun of LA, I made a video called When You're in LA, and it's a video about me being in LA because that's the angle that I find most comfortable to take it from.
So tell us, how did you stumble upon your signature format?
And how would you describe my signature format?
I would describe your signature format as fast cut selfie videos which parody young people in the tech industry. Companies trying to get people back to the office.
So nice seeing all these faces, IRL. Face. Thank you, Sarah. We have heard from people who are spending at least 3 days a week in the office, and they are loving it. They're thriving. Greater collaboration. Organic interaction. Magic hallway conversation. We won't be releasing the full results of the Pulse check-ins at this time for privacy reasons. Sometimes, when you have a job, you actually have to do the job. Sorry to cut you off. We're not remote first. We've never been remote first. We're hybrid. Remember when we all had to come into the office 5 days a week, every week? And we did it because that was our job. Do you remember that? Alex, I see your chat about the 4-day work week. I swear to God. For each day that you come into the office, we are donating $10 to the charity of your choice. Will that work? Uber credit, parking reimbursement. We will literally pay for you to have one of those $4,000 e-bikes from Amsterdam. Does anyone know how insane that is? Nobody wants to play hardball here, but yeah, pretty soon not showing up is going to start to impact your performance reviews. Veronica, I'm sorry for using a sports metaphor. I see now how that was alienating to those of us who don't know what baseball is. Hey, you know what? A great way to make sure we're all on the same page, communication-wise, is coming to the office 3 days a week. I really don't want to get too hung up on this. We have a lot to get through today. Next on the agenda, we will be doing another round of layoffs.
When someone asks for a small angel check.
a really reasonable floor. I love that you asked me. I mean, clearly you think that's a small amount of money to me, and that makes me feel good. Just like a teeny check. Little baby check. It's like not even material to the business at that point. What is that, like a week at the Miami edition? You know what? You don't seem like you need it. I think you'll work harder without the money. When would you need that by? That is tough timing, because otherwise I'd be in 100%. You're asking folks to have some skin in the game, and I love that. I wish I could. I get why you asked me. I mean, if I can afford Equinox, obviously I can afford this. I'm invested in a competitor. Well, they're not directly competitive, but they could pivot. So better just in case. I think I'd have a lot more value as an advisor. I have a lot of capital, but some of it is tied up in other investments. That's some money in FTX. I'm not super liquid. I mean, I'm liquid. I'm viscous. I'm like maple syrup that's been in the fridge. Think of how much scrappier you'll be without it. This story is going to be great on a podcast one day. And that is my gift to you. So in a way, I am investing in the business, but no, not with money.
I think what's really interesting about that is that it wasn't ever something I set out to define as my own. It came through a process of making videos that I thought were funny, things that were as close as you can get to your own taste level when you're inexperienced. And that format just sort of evolved. And to your point, I do make other types of videos now, other types of sketches, longer form efforts and things of that nature. And fun fact, only about 50% of my videos have ever been about the tech and business world. But there is such an oversized reach in terms of views and engagement on those videos that more often than not, people associate me first with tech and business.
Right.
Which not at all a complaint, but just kind of an interesting observation.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those filter bubble points because there are these different Twitters within Twitter.
For sure.
Right? There's weird Twitter, there's black Twitter, and then there's VC Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And tech Twitter.
Yep.
And there's many other Twitters,
many
right?
Twitters.
But you, I think because of your social network and also some of these, commentaries,
totally.
Your work does ping pong and start around this VC Twitter and tech Twitter.
Yeah.
Kind of like, is it Rashad or Rashid?
Yeah, Rashad is.
Yeah, Rashad.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
his stuff too.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Who
Good
is,
friend of mine.
runs the Red Point TikTok.
Yes.
But I feel like you all exist in kind of this like VC Twitter world first before things then sometimes shoot out into the stratosphere of the greater internet.
Well, it definitely is the case for me in terms of my trajectory and growth. Just by the numbers, the first video that I ever had that went truly viral in the sense that it got an order of magnitude more views than anything I'd ever posted was about San Francisco.
And which video was that?
So that was a video in April of 2020 called Every Single Party in San Francisco.
I work in tech. Oh, I work in tech. I work for a tech company. We went to Burning Man together. We overlapped at Google. My ex-boyfriend's roommate is the guy that sells him mushrooms. The Salesforce Tower has been up for like a long time now. Uber prices have been so high recently. Which robo-advisor app are you using? I really like Wealthfront. I wish I could stay later, but I have to get up early for a hike tomorrow. Oh, that's because he's microdosing. I love hiking, meditation, matcha latte, intermittent fasting, stock options, oat milk. Duh. Oh, it's fine. They're poly. I can't. I'm going to be in Tahoe. I'm going to be camping in Yosemite. I'm going to be traveling for a work thing. My one bedroom's actually only $3,100, so it's a pretty good deal. Hiking. I'm obsessed with hiking. Oh, is that vegan? Do you have any IPAs? I don't really know if they're going to go public, but I have a ton of options, so I figure I'll just stick around and find out. Patagonia, East Bay. Back-end infrastructure. She's such a marina girl. Hiking is great. I love hiking. I moved here from New York. I think I'm going to move to New York. I love New York. New York is seriously so overrated.
You can imagine, like, looking back, I have so many so many feelings about that video. But because it was the first one that ever got like real views, and just for comparison's sake, prior to that video, the most views anything I had ever posted on Twitter had received was 1,100 views. And I remember that because it was exciting. Wow, this got 1,100 views. Hell yeah. A friend of mine who I had met had like retweeted it, and she had like 20,000 followers. I was like, oh wow, 1,100 views. That's awesome. And then I posted that video, and in 1 week, it received 3.1 million views.
Wow.
And my Twitter following in the course of that week went from 950 people to 15,000 people.
Wow.
And it felt like I had been standing in a room performing comedy to like a small, intimate group of my friends, and then 15,000 people walked in the door and I'm still holding the microphone. Because to all of them, they just followed a comedian.
Right.
And I know the truth. I'm alone in a studio apartment in San Francisco working in tech my entire day. And then I'm just doing this for fun because it's keeping me sane during the pandemic. But they all think they followed a comedian. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the comedian. And so I made a commitment that day. I remember so specifically being like, I am just going to keep doing exactly what I've been doing, which at the time was writing at least 3 jokes for Twitter per day and putting out at least 1 video per week. And I forced myself to, even in the craziness of that day, you know, in the first day, 1 million views, so many followers, so many people I respected retweeting it, business leaders who I had looked up to sharing the video. I was like, I'm publishing a joke. And if they unfollow me now, that's good. Because, you know, it's all right. And I still believe this, for people to leave your following, and whether they come back, it's or they don't, it's okay. Because I want to attract people who want to be there for my perspective, wherever it is at that moment in my life. And so people followed me in that moment because that was my perspective at that time. And I was like, and if they're going to unfollow me because this joke isn't that good, that's okay. Because the only way I know to get better is to keep going.
Yes.
And so I was sitting at my kitchen table, literally like, this joke is okay, but it's going out the door.
Yes.
And luckily, all 15,000 people didn't unfollow me, which is great. And then over the course of that year, it kept growing through that same process of just keep producing.
Yes. And you didn't fall victim to the paralysis of thinking that everything you have to put out is good.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really important, we could spend so long talking about that point.
Have you read The War of Art?
Oh my gosh, I haven't.
It's a great book. And The War of Art, it's about this concept of creative resistance and how we feel this feeling of, you know what, this isn't good enough, I'm not going to put it out. Or I could tackle this today, but I'm going to tackle it tomorrow. That is the feeling of resistance.
Yeah.
And resistance is what you feel when you're just about to peel a layer of the onion and ascend to the next plane. And your body is afraid to do that. And your mind is afraid to do that. And the book posits the difference between an amateur and a professional is not whether you're making money. An amateur does not know how to overcome resistance,
yes,
but a professional does. And a professional writes every day. And a professional works every day. Or in your case, a professional posts to that 3-post cadence. And it's a great, lovely book that I highly recommend.
I'll check that out. A lot of that rings really, really true for me. I think a lot about what makes a good creative professional. And I think it has to do with which tools you have in your toolkit, which sharp tools you have in your toolkit. And I really believe that one of the best tools I can spend time sharpening is a willingness to share my work regularly.
Yes.
Because that helps you get better so much faster because you are actively making and producing things.
So I had a question about this in particular, which is, have you always been comfortable in the spotlight? Have you always been comfortable with attention? You know, like, talk to me about like your childhood. Like, was there a time when you were shy, or does this come natural to you?
I've never been shy. As a child, I spent a lot of time on stage actually acting.
You did? That makes sense.
Yes.
Because you have real stage presence.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
It's that's one of the tools.
What did you act? What did you do?
I did, you know, as a kid, every play I could get my hands on. And I did some student film, you know, student homework projects at NYU, basically.
Excellent.
And
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Which, huge plug, by the way, for the importance of being bored as a child and as a creative person.
Connecticut will do that to you.
Connecticut will do it. From the woods.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, at the time I was bored. But I think I'm making my plug for boredom. If I could plug one thing, I would like to plug boredom. It's very important to just have your mind still and be a little bored. I think it engenders the opportunity to be creative.
Absolutely.
If you're constantly engaged, you can't create anything new. There's too many inputs.
Well, that's what's such a terror about phones.
100%.
And screens.
Couldn't agree more.
They prevent us from being bored.
Absolutely.
And children.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that I could talk about. Absolutely. I mean, it's so true. And it's of course nice. Your brain wants the hit of dopamine, but if you're trying to create something, there just can't be so many inputs coming at you all the time. I'm not demonizing. Obviously, I'm on my phone. I listen to podcasts, all that, but I have to be really disciplined about...
You can still demonize it and be addicted, by the way. That's what I do.
Well, I don't feel addicted to it. I do feel like it's a relationship I actively manage with my phone.
I aspire to be as healthy as you.
Yeah, I just, you turn it off sometimes, or like, if this is the expert level, but I will leave it at home when I go for a walk. And then I realize how much I miss it for the first few minutes. And that's why and then I'm reminded, I'm like, oh, this is a good idea. You miss your phone.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Honestly, it feels scary at first, feels hard because you're missing a piece of security you usually have in your pocket. You'll be fine. You'll get over it in 5 minutes. You forget. Then you start looking around and you're like, oh my God, there's so much stuff.
We're going to revisit this later. I love it.
Yeah.
I was talking to a prospective guest today who's a very well-respected leader in communications and PR. And I said, do you have any questions for Alexis? And she says, does she feel pressure to be funny off camera?
I love this question. Yes, I really do. I really do. It's challenging.
Like you come to a dinner and people are like, oh, she's the funny one.
So you mentioned I spent the first 7 years of my career in tech. So the first 7 years of my adult life, I had like a normal job that people maybe had a follow-up question about. Maybe.
Yeah.
Work in tech. Oh, where? This place. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah. Do you know Nick Micklitz?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Which, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I know all those peeps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Danny Agnew?
Yes, Danny Agnew, the coolest man on the planet.
Coolest man on the planet.
I'm happy to go on the record.
He's
hilarious.
Funny.
So funny. And by the way, Danny has been so supportive of my career.
Fantastic.
So supportive.
Shout out Danny Agnew.
Shout out Danny Agnew. I'll shout out Danny Agnew all day. He's been amazing.
We went to the water park in New Jersey together that got shut down because it was too dangerous.
What?
Action Park,
That's
aka
hilarious.
Class Action Park.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, and we were just drinking tequila all day, and he was obsessed with this little taco stand called Let's Taco About It.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we tore it up.
I think you might be why we had Sir Kensington's at the office.
Precisely.
That's why I know.
Yeah, because John Keaton was an investor.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is a friend to this day.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I love that little startup factory space that they had there.
Absolutely. Yeah, the garden.
In Chelsea.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh
Cool.
my gosh.
So there you go. That was my follow-up question.
Yeah.
On your first 7 years in tech.
But speaking to this idea of like, do I feel pressure to be funny? When I tell people I'm a comedian, there's like this moment that a lot of people seem to have where they're like, oh, and it's like I'm a different type of person now to them. And I'm not saying everyone then expects me to be hilarious, but they have a lot of questions, which comes from a really good place of what an interesting career, what an unusual journey. And so, I'll share a little bit about what happened, but I have had people full on say to me, so if you're a comedian, why haven't you made a joke this entire conversation?
People say that to you?
Someone said that to me. Someone said that to me 3 months ago.
And you're like, you're a doctor. Have you asked for my blood pressure?
I played it so not cool. I can't even tell you. I was like, oh, well, what do you do? And
Yeah,
like,
knock.
Yeah, literally. And he was like, oh, I do something in the film industry. I can't remember. And I was like, oh, well, why haven't in this converse you haven't done? And I was, oh my God, I was so flabbergasted.
Yeah.
But I am not funny all the time.
Yeah.
And in fact, I have never, this is frequently a question I get, oh, when did you realize you were funny? And I don't mean this in a self-deprecating way, I don't think of being funny as like a core part of my identity. I think of comedy as a skill that I've honed over time.
Makes sense. Yeah. And also one of the, I did improv as well.
Oh, you did?
As a kid. And,
no way.
And I led an improv group in high school, and the two rules, one is affirm and elevate. Never say no to your partner. The second rule is don't try and be funny.
It is, yes.
And your work is, I'm not going to go so far to say that it is deadpan, but because you are lampooning and parodying, this certain class, you present things as serious that are in fact funny.
Yes.
So that's your form of comedy versus quote unquote like being funny.
It's so true. Well, here's why. To me, it's very rare anything is funnier than the truth. It's very rare.
Yes.
for in my personal life, like what I laugh at, like the funniest things to me are like the truest things.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what I've created in my work across the last few years is just like, here is a thing that is like so true, it's funny.
Yes.
Here is what it is. And in my opinion, like the better you can act something like so accurately and grounded and here is how it is, the funnier it will be. Mm-hmm. I take even the like quote dumbest, and I often mean dumb as a compliment, dumbest sketches I've made, I take them so seriously when it comes to the acting because I know that is how I can make it as funny as possible. Great
lesson.
Absolutely.
Do you follow Billy Draper or do you know who he is?
Yes. Wait, no. Do I?
He's a friend of mine. He's an investor, but he also has from time to time made videos in a similar format as you. I asked him, what should I ask Alexis? And he said, where does she get stuck as a creator?
Love this question. Nobody asks me this. Billy is great. Okay. Thank you, Billy, for this incredible question. First of all, I get stuck all the time, and there's like a micro answer to this and there's like a macro answer to this because I feel there have been times in my career where I have also felt stuck. But I'll answer micro first because I think it's more helpful. I don't only write sketches when I have a funny idea. I write sketches because sketches have to go out. Mm-hmm. And so that's the first answer is just...
That's the war of art.
I mean, absolutely. It sounds like I'm going to love this book.
I think so.
I'm kind of upset I haven't read it already. I think that honestly, this is going to sound silly. If I'm really struggling either to focus or to come up with something, I will set a timer for 10 minutes and just be like, you only have to write. Like I'm a child. You only have to write for 10 minutes. However, you simply cannot stop. So there's no phone. There's no, I'll just fold the laundry first. No. Sit down. 10 minutes. Some of my best ideas came from this. I'm sure that is true to some extent. But more importantly, stuff got done.
Yes.
And even if the stuff I wrote in that 10 minutes was bad, it was stuff I could then fix later. And so the blocks come all the time. But it's just keep working it. And you can't give yourself a chance to make it better if you don't first get it out on the page.
Amen. Beautiful. And you can't wait for inspiration to strike. No.
I'll reference something that I'm working on a show right now that's on tour called Unprofessional. And my director is a man named Matt Gehring, who is fantastic, UCB. He was NYU Tisch alum. He's fantastic. And something he shared with me while I was developing my show was... I was like, oh, Matt, I have a great idea for a part of the show. And he's like, oh, cool, write it. And I'd be like, yeah, it's good. It's up here and it's good. And he'd be like, yeah, you should write it down. And I was like, okay, I will. And he was like, it's always better in your head. Mm. And until you write it down, you don't actually get to see what it is. Mm. And I was like, oh no, I thought I had this brilliant idea. And I wrote a couple things and some were good, some weren't so good, but it's like, oh, right. It's always best up here because no holes have been poked in it yet. Yeah. And it's better, rather than say, oh, no, it's bad, which I also don't recommend. Always just get it out. Getting it out on the page, and then you can evaluate it. So much healthier. But yeah, the best idea is the one you haven't written down yet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love living in the world of pure ideas. Right? That's one of my
Because you're like, ooh, my movie idea is so good.
Yeah, so clean.
No flaws.
Yeah,
perfect.
So clean. So your show that you just referenced, Unprofessional, debuted at the Fringe Festival.
That's right.
In Edinburgh.
That's right.
Which is a tremendous accomplishment.
Oh, thank you.
And it seems like a different art than doing videos.
Yes.
What did you learn from the experience of developing the show and actually break open the process of, like, do you have to apply to the Fringe Festival and be accepted? Like, tell us about the process of going to Scotland and all that.
Absolutely. Definitely a very, very different effort than making 1 minute to 90-second sketch comedy videos. But that was why it was so important to me that I do it, because something I'm always thinking about is like, and this is probably my tech startup background, I like to iterate and I like to get a little bit bigger, a little bit better, instead of being like, oh, let me take a huge swing. Mm-hmm. There's time to take bold action for sure. I consider taking the show to Fringe a bold action, but it wasn't the first time I'd ever gotten on stage. In fact, I went to the Fringe Festival in 2023, the year before.
To case the joint.
Show. Actually, do you want to know the truth? I cased it in 2022.
Okay.
I attended for a week in 2022. I wanted to know what the fuss was about. Comedians I loved and admired were coming back from this festival with brilliant shows, interesting shows that played with format, with genre, that told vulnerable stories but were so funny. I'm thinking Kat Cohen, Alex Edelman, who has his show Just for Us, which has won a number of awards, tons of critical acclaim, great show. That show started at the Fringe. I was seeing all this exciting stuff coming out of it. So I went for a week in 2022. I went by myself, saw as many shows as I possibly could, made a couple friends. I just went to kind of be like, what's the deal? Like, what would it take for me to bring a show here? And then in 2023, I brought a show that was just me doing stand-up with rotating openers every day. It was called Alexis Gay and Friends. I did it in a super low budget way. It was a free show, pay what you want. But it meant that every day for 25 days, I got to do a headliner set worth of material. I got to do 25 minutes of stand-up every day for almost a month.
Wow.
Especially early in your career, that much stage time would maybe in a year, maybe a year and a half it would take. And instead I got it in a month.
Wow. It's like the Beatles gigging in Hamburg.
Just every day. Just go. Right. They had that recurring show.
Yeah.
And so I went there to be like, okay, now I know what this is. Now I know what it takes. And I've done it in this low budget, cobbled together way. Now I'm ready in 2024 to take my hour and do it for real. And that was the process. It was really like, it started by going in 2022 to just scope it out, you know? But going to the Fringe in 2024 was an important effort for me because I'd written the show. This is a huge thing I recommend to creatives, especially people like me writing material for an hour or for a solo show. The Fringe is brilliant because it gives you deadlines. Oh my God. Deadlines when you're self-employed, when you're a self-employed creative, I love them. They hurt, but this is why the show got done. The show got done. The show got named because at some point I had to fill out a form that was like, what's it called?
Yeah, right.
You know, and then another form was like, describe it. And then you know what I mean?
And that's the copy, right?
Right. Then, we need to be able to send a video of it to the PR person. Okay, well then we better have a video of it to send to the PR person.
Yeah.
And so the deadlines that this festival imposes were so critical for me. Because it's hard to motivate yourself all the time. There's so much discipline in being self-employed and being a self-employed creative. My whole day is just like this discipline exercise.
Wow, good for you.
And so thanks. I don't say it to be like, look at me.
No,
but it's like
hard.
it's just like being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
No one was like, you need to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Some
part of you had to be like, I will find the discipline in myself to be an entrepreneur.
Right. And also though, you know, in a quote unquote most entrepreneurial settings, or my experience, you have a co-founder, you have investors, you have employees. So all those things actually, they create necessary structure around you.
Yeah.
So you don't actually have to wake up every day and reinvent the wheel.
Right.
Or find the inspiration. But yes, I mean, you have a manager and you had a director, but a lot of that discipline is actually on you.
Well, and both of those people didn't come into my life in those capacities until this year.
Right.
Or within the last 12 months.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful. And I have a producer for my show. So grateful because that actually just helps me feel less alone. It can be really lonely. I wish I had sometimes I wish I was on like a sketch duo. Like it was two of us. And that would mean like when we won, like when something went really viral or something made a lot of people laugh, we'd be like, yeah, high five. Yeah. We did it.
Yes.
I did it. It's not that compelling. It's not that exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I really prefer to win like as a team.
Yeah.
It's actually why I've been so excited to have a director, have a manager. I now make a lot of sketches with my friend and comedian Gabe Malika just because it's the two of us.
Right.
And we get to be like, hey, that was fun.
Yes.
But the Fringe Festival or anything that forces you to have deadlines that's like an external person and isn't just you, I cannot recommend enough if you're a self-employed creative person.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a message that you want to send to the world?
To the whole world?
Yeah. Like does your work have a message?
My work doesn't have a message, but I am essentially asking a question with everything I make.
Oh, great.
And it's basically like, hey, I feel this. What about you? almost everything I make comes from a place of wanting to know if I'm the only one. Am I the only one that hears everything in Silicon Valley like this? Am I the only one that like cleans their apartment before the cleaning person comes over? Am I the only one? And because what am I really asking? Am I alone?
Right.
Am I alone?
Wow. And one of the reasons that's so powerful is because when you ask that question, people feel seen because they do feel the same way.
Right.
They see themselves in you.
Yes.
When you pose
Yes.
that question.
Yes. And on stage, when you make people laugh, they're not choosing to laugh. It just happens. I feel so connected to complete strangers in that moment, because in that moment we are sharing something. Whether it's because I remind them of themselves, their girlfriend, their sister, their boss, whoever. In that moment, we got to share something, and maybe they're not saying, oh, that's my experience, but they're saying, I recognize your experience. It feels so... the laughs don't feel good to me because it's like, oh, validation, I'm funny. It's like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yes. Wow, beautiful. And now you were a successful professional. You were
Thank
climbing,
you.
quote unquote, the
you.
corporate
Sure,
ladder.
sure.
You were
Yeah,
in
yeah.
tech. You were promoted multiple times at Patreon.
Yeah, see, my mom had a similar argument when
you
I
had
was
a-
leaving
you
to be
know,
a comedian.
And so you could have just stayed a class clown.
Yeah,
right?
for
Where
sure.
you had your full-time job, you had your benefits,
yes,
you had your pay,
yes.
stock options,
Health insurance is so dope.
health
May I go on the record?
insurance. You and I can trade. We can trade some tips around that.
Absolutely.
But why did you decide to go out on your own and make this your livelihood?
So the initial decision to leave my tech job and do comedy full-time was not necessarily motivated by making it my career. What I wanted to do, I wanted to know what it would feel like to have all my time at my disposal. I wanted to see what I could do with that creatively. Because after, let's say, 8 solid months of like really pushing the limits of what I was capable of creating while working a full-time job where I managed 7 people, which I take really seriously.
Of course.
To me, management is a service position. That's a service role.
Yeah, servant leadership.
Absolutely. Those 7 people's careers were so important to me, and making sure that I was supporting them and helping them grow, like that was my job. As soon as comedy started to feel as important, I made the decision to resign. Because I was like, this is, maybe if I was an IC, could have stuck around a little longer.
Right.
Had the health insurance, keep vesting my equity. Not to say I would ever take
IC,
advantage.
for those of you out there, is individual contributor.
Someone without direct reports.
Right.
I'm not saying I would ever take advantage, but I wouldn't have felt as strong a moral obligation to be showing up for my team.
Yes.
And so I had all my...
Because they would see you as being distracted, which actually undermines the importance of their own work.
100%.
And so leaders have to show maniacal focus on the mission, or else, everyone who looks up to them will see, oh, it's actually, we have permission to be distracted.
Right.
We have permission to do something else. Yeah, you can't ask something of the team that you
you're not
lead
willing
that
to
you
do
could
yourself.
not be willing to do yourself.
It was always important to me to create a space on my team where people could be themselves. So this was never a secret that I did comedy. It was never a secret. I invited the company to my improv shows when I was doing improv, and obviously the videos are on the
Alexis
internet.
Gay is not a nom de plume.
No, I probably wouldn't have chosen a name that spells out Alex is gay. That one's on my parents. They didn't notice. And so it was always important to me to have like a space where people could be themselves, but it was also important that I was modeling like A+ behavior. And there were moments where I was like, oh, I really want to edit that video, but I have to attend like 2021 headcount planning.
Right.
That's an important meeting.
Right. Can't miss that.
So those were the warning signs. That was the red light going off
see.
saying, you need to look into this. But the actual decision came from a desire to know how it might feel. It wasn't to accomplish anything. It was sort of the way that I think about going on a hike. No one is ever like, was it a successful hike? They're like, how was it? Was it hard? What'd you see? What was the view like? How was the weather? That's how I thought about leaving. It was like, I'm going to go on a hike. I don't know how long the hike is. I don't know really where I'm going. I don't know how steep it's going to be, but I want to find out what it feels like.
Yes. Beautiful.
And it's been 4 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
Surreal.
Lovely.
Surreal.
Do you ever feel scared?
Yes.
What's that like?
there's a few different types of fear. One fear, I mentioned my macro blocks. Okay. Something that has happened to me once, maybe twice, is I've become afraid to put anything out. Because in the beginning, I actually had less fear because there was nothing to lose.
Stakes were low.
Oh my God, there were no stakes.
Yeah.
No one was watching. You know, the very first videos I ever made for fun, it was in 2017. I challenged myself to make a 1-minute video every day for 30 days, and I put them on a private Instagram account that my boyfriend at the time and my best friend followed. That's it. That was my audience. And then eventually a few more friends followed. Eventually I opened it up to the public. Eventually I grew that into the current account I have today. So if you scroll all the way down, you can actually see the first 30 videos I ever made.
I attempted to view them last night, but they were like broken on Instagram.
Yeah, they're so far down.
Something was like weird with the video, but I got a little bit.
Yeah.
I got a little bit.
Yeah.
The one of you describing a quote unquote like low key birthday party.
Oh,
When
yeah.
you're like, oh, it's something low key. Let's just like rent a DJ.
Absolutely.
And,
But
like,
if
a
you go
loft.
back, and that was
Yeah.
even,
That was
like
later.
31. If
Yeah.
you go back even farther, there are ones I made on my phone. That I made on a camera.
Yeah.
But anyway, I bring this up because in the beginning, no stakes. Literally the stakes were, my boyfriend and best friend are going to see this video. That's it.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where millions of people might see this. Oh my God, millions of people might see this and they might decide this isn't good.
Yeah.
And then they might decide like, I'm not worth following anymore.
Right.
And then this currency I have, which is reach, that might go away. And then how do I build a business if I can't reach anybody to invite them to the shows?
Yeah.
And I think of that as like, that's the high wire act, is you know that that's possible. You know that's down there and you just have to keep going.
Yes.
It's possible. One day that might happen. I doubt it will happen as swiftly as I think the fear tells me it will. The fear is like one day it's just going to happen.
What about economic pressure, economic stress? Do you think about the business model, your earning power, the sustainability of a business model?
Can you imagine if I said no? What was like if I said no to that? Is there anyone, do you think, who would maybe not think about it? The answer is unequivocally yes.
I have no idea.
What
if you told me that you actually had a Netflix special was about to come out and there was an advance that was attached to that?
But even if that was true, the years leading to that point would still have been full of the concern and the attempt to plan and get a handle on things.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to say you don't feel any economic pressure, but I'm wondering if it's a loud voice in your mind.
I think it's really important for creatives to not come from a place of scarcity. Because when you feel scarcity, I think in any area of your life, I do think it makes you feel like creative ideas are scarce and like you won't come up with anything good because there aren't any good ideas left.
Yes. You have to delude yourself into abundance. And only then in your naive abundance can you create beautiful things.
Absolutely. I love to be naive in that way. I'm always like, I'll come up with something.
Yeah, and you will.
I will.
Alexis, you will.
Because I just won't stop until I do. Like, I'll just come up with something.
Absolutely.
And even if I come up with like an okay idea and then I make an okay sketch, I still got better.
That's right.
I still wrote one more, put one more in the books.
You're so healthy.
Oh my God.
I feel like a lot of comedians are not as healthy as you. I see a lot of stand-up where people are working out some deep issues. And
yes.
You're it's like talking to a self-help professor
it's
here.
Very generous.
What secret have you learned that you think the rest of the world should know?
I think before I started doing comedy, I don't think I appreciated the value of failure as actually a way to improve and move forward.
Almost ironic coming from Silicon Valley in the startup world.
Isn't it?
Where failure is theoretically celebrated.
Yes.
But in reality is actually not.
Well, it depends who you are and depends what you've done and depends what you're trying to do. Different people in tech have different amounts of leeway when it comes to failure and how many chances we give them. There's some people who have seemingly endless chances. And others who only get one shot and then their reputation is over or they have to rebuild it. But failure, I think, is such an important way to learn what is good and what you're good at and what you can be better at. But on top of that, I also think that you can't really get better at something you're not willing to fail at. Because then how do you get better at it?
That's right. You can't find your edge.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I would never delete the first 30 videos I made. Like I have no shame about them. I mean, they are not, and I say this like with love for the version of me that made them, they are not good. I'm putting them in air quotes. They're not good.
Yeah.
But I love them. I have like so much love in my heart for those videos.
Yes.
Because they're not good. Because I look at them and I'm like, oh my God, you can get so much better at something. And I find it very powerful. But if I had said to myself, whatever I make isn't going to be good, and therefore I shouldn't make it, I would never be able to get better. I needed all of those videos. And even the stuff I'm making now, I mean, I sometimes think, I wonder what it will feel like 4 more years from now to look back at what I'm making and be like, oh my God, I had no idea how much more I could create.
Yeah.
It's sketches now. Is it a TV show next? Is
Again,
it a movie
you're so healthy the way you think about these things.
Oh my God, I appreciate that.
So now we move to at large and off the cuff.
Ooh, fun.
This is our
okay.
quick fire round.
Great.
We start with the same question for everyone.
Okay.
Are you glad social media exists, or do you wish it never existed?
I'm glad it exists. And
You don't have to have an and, but if you have an and, we'll hear it.
I'm glad it exists. And I am optimistic that moving forward, we as people will find ways to either self-regulate, or if the platforms themselves will find a way to still earn revenue and help regulate use, such that people are really enjoying their time on the platforms instead of what can often feel like just hitting that dopamine button.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to the platforms as long as people are really, truly enjoying the experience of being on them or seeing real value. But how often do you look up from your phone 20 minutes later and be like, oh my, what did I just look at?
It's like a free plate of never-ending French fries.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Like when left to my own devices, I am eating far too many
so many French fries. Because who wouldn't?
Yes.
So that's my hope, is that we can move to a place where time spent on them is like joyful or meaningful in some way.
Yes. So normally I ask this question framed around everyone's a critic, and I ask people to critique things. For you, I'm going to switch things up a little bit different, especially because you speak internet.
Okay.
Woke, broke, or bespoke.
Oh.
So those 3 options.
Yes.
You can interpret those adjectives how you like, but I'm going to list a few things and you can judge them.
Okay.
Woke, broke, or bespoke.
All right.
Dopamine fasts.
I'll say bespoke.
Cold plunges.
Woke.
Standing desks.
Broke.
Digital nomading.
The term is broke. Actually, all broke. Broke on all of it.
Angel investing.
Angel investing, bespoke.
Remote work.
A hot take, broke.
Kubernetes.
Kubernetes is woke, absolutely.
Founder mode.
Oh, Jesus. Founder mode is bespoke.
Athleisure.
Athleisure is woke.
Yeah, because you were a Outdoor Voices girl back in the day.
Love.
Yeah. Effective accelerationism.
Oh my God. Effective accelerationalism.
Are you like in that world on Twitter?
No, should I be?
Beth Jesus and all those guys?
Oh,
no?
yeah.
E/ACC?
Sure, okay.
You can take a pass on that one.
I think I'll take a pass.
Okay. Hype houses.
Hype houses, broke. Broke. Bad.
Who are the creators? Okay, moving away from
Yes.
bespoke. Who are the creators that make you laugh the most?
Ooh. When you say creators,
who
do you mean
follow?
comedians?
Yeah, no, I actually mean on social media, but we can talk about your comedian.
Well, because I do think there is a misconception that because I put a lot of my work online, I am a very online person.
Yeah, I definitely confused that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I understand why.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But that isn't really the case, in the sense that I don't spend a lot of time consuming content on the internet.
Right. Yeah, you're an IRL person that broadcasts online,
Yes.
but you're not one of these like very internet people. Yeah, you're lucky. Okay, so in that case, let me rephrase the question.
Sure.
Who are the comedians that make you laugh the most?
Okay. let's see. The comedians that make me laugh the most are, well, one of my favorite comedians and role models, definitely for my work, is John Mulaney. Who I just absolutely, I love his stand-up. I love his style.
Yes.
A huge fan.
He's
definitely
great.
Has been an inspiration to me for many, many years.
Have you met him?
Never met him.
Oh, yeah.
He performed at Dreamforce recently, which I thought was
That's right.
really interesting.
That's
I was like,
right.
all right, we'll have something to talk about one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who else do I think is just so, oh my gosh, there is a comedian, he's based here in LA right now, who is, a star on the rise is an understatement. His name is Dylan Adler, and he is so funny. He does some musical comedy. He's an incredible stand-up. He does wonderful impressions. He has a Lin-Manuel Miranda impression that I'm pretty sure is Lin-Manuel Miranda approved.
Great.
He's fantastic.
I want
Love
to see
Dylan.
that one.
Oh my gosh, there's like so many going through my brain right now. I don't even know. I love Kat Cohen. I think what she does is singular.
Awesome.
I think she's another comedian who incorporates musical elements, almost like a cabaret. Just, I really like comedians who are doing something specific to them. Mm-hmm. It's so enchanting to me to watch comedians just be like, what's my thing? And then I'm going to do it really, really well. Instead of like, oh, what's somebody else's thing and I'm going to do them. Mm-hmm. That said, I do believe in when you're starting out, giving yourself permission to try different people's styles on. I can definitely look at my work and see where I was like trying on John Mulaney's style to try to feel out what parts of this are like me and not like me to help me discover my own voice.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons I felt okay to do that is I'm pretty sure he gave that advice on a podcast I listened to once, and I was like, okay, he says it's okay.
Yeah. No, the style thing it's a really good point, because it's not about the joke so much as owning the style and
Right,
telling
like
jokes in the style. I mean, Seinfeld,
Yes.
Shane Gillis, and Theo Vaughn.
Yeah.
They, who I appreciate all three of those, and their style is unmistakably them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And different from one another.
Very different. Very different.
You can tell that is their specific style. And so I'm really drawn to comedians who create like that.
Yeah, that's cool. And then, of course, Mitch Hedberg.
I mean, one of the first comedians I ever knew about was Mitch Hedberg. I remember watching compilations on YouTube of his work.
Yeah. He is great.
Yeah. I don't have a girlfriend, but I do have a woman who'd be really mad if she heard me say that. I mean, perfect.
That's such
the perfect
a good
joke.
line. That's such a good line. Yeah. What is your weirdest pre-show ritual?
Okay. So I don't feel nervous before shows, but sometimes my body will physically betray me. Like mentally I'll feel great. And then my body will be like, you're about to do what?
The body keeps the score.
So exactly. And so I have to do things to like calm my body down to help it like keep up with my brain.
Yes.
So I will box breathe backstage.
Oh, nice.
4 counts in, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And I will just stand backstage and breathe and do a little box breath. And I will think to myself, I had a show in Seattle 2 nights ago that was so much fun. And I did this before that show. Again, I felt great. I felt great about going on stage. Excited. And then right at the last thing, my body was like, wait, what are you doing? Calmed my body down. And I told myself, we are going to have a great time. We, meaning me and the audience together, we are going to have so much fun. We are all here for the same goal. It is to have fun. We are going to have a great time.
Yeah, you're like a mother yanking your toddler into the first day of school.
I'm like,
to your body. We are going to have a
we
great
are going to have
time.
a great time. We are here. We are here to have fun. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
Ease. And let's enjoy. Let's have a good time. I used to start every set I did with, I'm so happy to be here. Because it's true.
It's genuine. I could tell.
And it's a reminder.
As soon as I saw you outside and I asked how you were doing, and you looked at me with the most genuine, authentic answer.
I am. I'm so happy to be
great.
here. Yeah.
I say the same thing. People think I'm weird.
Yeah, they think we're not telling the truth.
No, but we just...
I'm happy to be here.
We're high on life. Maybe it's the functional mushrooms.
Maybe it's the functional mushrooms.
What is your most irrational fear?
Oh my God. Well, my most conspiracy theorist fear recently became much more valid which is that I refuse to do genetic DNA testing because I think that your DNA will be bundled and then sold to health insurance companies to drive people's premiums up.
Yeah, because 23andMe might be going under.
Right.
And so, you have an agreement with them, but if it goes through Chapter 11 or the assets get split up and they find a way to
Yes.
nullify those agreements.
Yes. So that's my most dystopian fear. Where I won't do 23andMe or ancestry.com testing or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm worried that my data, my genetic code will get bundled and then sold to a health insurance company, and then I will have some weird disease that I don't even know about, and then my health insurance will go up.
That is the world that we may live
But
in.
I'm like, that's not that irrational.
No, it's not irrational at all.
Right, especially recently. Yes. By the way, if you have done one of those tests, you can still get your data deleted from 23andMe for a period of time.
Yeah.
So it might be worth looking into.
Okay. Well, that is maybe not irrational, but good fear. What's more stressful to you? Feeling like your impact is not recognized when you were at work, or worrying about how many likes you're going to get on your videos?
I don't know if you're going to believe me when I say this, but I don't worry that much about the likes and the views.
Cool.
On videos.
Yeah. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm afforded the luxury to be able to do that because no part of my business right now is ad supported.
Right.
Which means
Right.
none of my revenue is tied to monetization online on these platforms wherein I need a certain amount of watch time or a certain amount of views to earn money. That's really an important distinction between me and other people who might make their money from how many views their videos get.
Yeah, influencers.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I made that choice really early on because of my experience at Patreon and seeing what the roller coaster of ad monetization can do to creative work, where
Yes.
you're oftentimes forced to create content that the platform wants you to create instead of what you want to make.
Right.
Because it's what YouTube's algorithm thinks is going to do better online so that they can put more ads in front of it. And I feel that it was important to me for my well-being to not be constantly obsessed with the numbers. I think it's very hard to maintain a healthy mindset when the numbers directly impact your revenue. They impact my revenue in the more macro sense.
Sure. No, but
Yeah.
that makes sense,
Yes.
and I think that's a very wise distinction. That
Not
you've made.
having an impact at my job, that would have been very hard. Would have been
Right.
very hard.
Right. Yeah. Good answer. So we ask everyone for one good recipe.
Oh,
Do you cook?
kind of.
That's fine. The kind of is cooking.
Great.
So walk us through a recipe, one of your go-to recipes, one of your favorite things to cook
Yes.
in cookbook level detail, enough for someone to be able to recreate it at home.
Okay.
What are you making and how do you make it?
Can I talk you through my measurements of how to make a French press?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
That's a beautiful one.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoy coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy good coffee. I'm not like mainlining coffee all day, but I really want every cup to be incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which means I don't mind doing the legwork. I used to use a Chemex. I currently use a French press. I weigh it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's, in my opinion, how you make the perfect French press coffee. You have to start with the right beans, first and foremost. For purposes of this recipe, may I suggest Andy Town's Wind and Sea blend is a great option.
Ooh.
Have you ever had that?
No.
San Francisco roaster, fantastic. It's a delightful blend. They have a couple locations out in Ocean Beach and in San Francisco. Love their blend. They kept me going during the pandemic. Wind and Sea blend. Okay, so you start with your favorite beans. I use a grinder. So you grind your beans up. For a French press, you don't want a totally rough grind, but you also don't want like the powder fine grind you might put in a Mr. Coffee. So you want to go with something, I think maybe about 3/4 towards like a rougher grind, okay? I think on my grinder, that's like a 28 out of 30, 22 out of 30, something like that. So you grind your beans. Then you get out your scale because you obviously have a food scale
Yes.
to make your French press coffee. All right, so you take your scale, put the French press on the scale, tear the scale, so now we're at 0.
Yep.
This is a very important step, obviously.
Thank you for the chemistry lesson. Yeah.
You're very
Tear
welcome.
the scale.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Right. And you do 30 grams of ground coffee. And then your hot water is ready. I like to let it sit for just a second because I think if you pour the water immediately, it's going to burn the beans. Right?
Yeah.
That's science.
You want it around 200, I think,
Sure.
not 212.
That's what the fellow kettle says. 204, 202, something like that. And so I pour a little bit of water into the French press and then I wait. We're letting the grounds bloom. Wait for about 30 seconds. Then you pour the rest of the water, and the ratio that I use is 12 grams of water to every gram of coffee. So if you've got 30 grams of coffee in there, you're looking for about 360 grams of water. And to me, that is the perfect French press.
Fantastic.
Yes. Then you let it sit until you remember that you have let coffee sit, which is usually for me about 5 minutes.
Do you read a newspaper or magazine along with your coffee?
No, I wish I did. You know, I used to when I was more, and not on tour, more disciplined with my writing practice. I would always write with coffee.
Oh, that's good.
Oh my gosh, it was truly meditative. Truly relaxing.
Yes.
I cannot wait to get back to that.
Yeah. And in a way, it's like an hourglass because when the coffee's gone,
Yeah.
like the exercise is over.
I write for 3 pages at a time. I follow the artist's way practice, the morning pages.
Yeah.
So it's 3 freehand pages in a notebook.
Cool.
Have you read that book?
I need to. I've heard of it.
Oh, let's trade. If you
Let's
read that,
trade.
and then I'll read the...
War of Art.
And then we should chat about it.
Sounds good.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Yeah, episode 2.
Yeah.
So, Alexis, where can people find you?
You can find me on the internet. Can you believe? It's at Yay Alexis Gay, and I'm pretty much anywhere you go online.
And you can also buy tickets to your show, Unprofessional.
Absolutely.
Which is in now 5 more cities.
I think we have 5 more. We just finished San Francisco and Seattle. I'm here in Los Angeles. I'm going to Austin, Texas, and then I will finish out in December in New York, Boston, and Washington, D.C. And all that information is on my website, which is www.alexis.gay.
I noticed that.
Because gay is a top-level domain.
TLD, baby.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Alexis.
This was such a treat.
This is a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to At Large. Today's episode was produced by Sick Bird Productions. Our theme song is Son of Sanford by Motion Worker. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and by email at atlargeshow.com. Follow me at SWH Norton on Instagram and Twitter, and DM me about the guests you want to hear on the show.